Well, thanks everyone for joining the main session with all the keynote speakers, and thanks to all of you that are staying here with us for this session dedicated to people who have little or no experience at all into the participation in Horizon programs, in European programs. As I just said, my name is Stefano. I am contact point for the, well, in Horizon 2020 was contact point for NMP and transport. For Horizon Europe, I will focus on the industrial part of Cluster 4 and the EAC. So, quick agenda of our session dedicated to people who are newcomers to Horizon. We will go through the basic concepts that are at the basis of your participation to European innovation programs. Then the first steps towards your participation, and what are the next steps that you should take if you are ready to jump in. And finally, we will be happy to take your questions and try to answer. One of the main aim also of the session is to try and respond to some, well, myths that you may have heard about participation to European programs, and of course try to demystify such myths. Please let me know if you hear me well. Just write in the chat. I need that someone who has some problem joining the group too. So if Charles or Rebecca, if you can copy and paste the link for Slim to, yeah, that's great, Charles, thank you very much. So let's go on. You have heard already quite a lot about European programs in the last hour. You probably have heard quite a lot also in the past. So what all these concepts that you have heard, what do they mean? Let's start from the basis. When you hear normally speaking about European programs, you hear about cooperation. And what is the motivation for cooperating into, well, collaborative research program? In many cases, you may miss competencies in your organization. You may miss infrastructure. So you have basically two options that you can go for. First one is developing them in-house, which can be very expensive, which can take a lot of time. And of course, there are long-term risks. For instance, the finance of a company which has to invest quite a lot for developing a new infrastructure. The other option is to cooperate, to go for teamwork. And as you have heard also before, what is the reason for trying to do it at European level instead of going national? First, there's well, the concept of excellence of European programs. They are very competitive programs, and they prove the applicant's maturity and the skills. You're able then to network with relevant players in your field while doing something with an additional impact, because you're addressing scientific and economic issues in trans-European partnership delivering at European level. You have advantageous funding rates. You can get up to 100% of your eligible costs with the overhead as well. And yes, for private players, the fact that you are participating into international consortia will give you more visibility and credibility towards investors and customers. You have heard quite a lot that the language of European programs is complex, that there's a lot of jargon that it's difficult to understand. Well, everything has their own language, but eventually what you have is that you have two main approaches to funding, 3/4 main funding instrument that you should know about. You can always have a gradual approach when you take more responsibilities with more experience. And in addition to that, there's a constant effort to further simplify from the European Commission. The first slide about trying to understand this EU jargon is about the two major funding approaches that you have. First one is the bottom-up approach. Proposals developed, well, where you will submit proposals developed on open calls with no prescription on the topic. You can have some thematic panels, and we are happy to advise on that. But these panels are mostly there to facilitate the evaluation process. As examples of bottom-up calls, you have the Marie Curie actions, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, sorry, the ERC, the AAC Pathfinder, and Accelerator. You also have top-down calls, proposals developed on topics developed again by the European Commission together with the member states, technology platforms, and advisory groups. The clusters normally are working on top-down calls. You have some specific calls in the EAC or the research infrastructure. Funding instrument. This is another important topic, but as I told you, it's pretty simplified now. You have 3/4 for a very specific case funding instruments that you should know about. Research and innovation actions is basically where you test your solution to develop a proof of concept or a prototype, let's say. And it's very simple. You have 100% funding rate when you participate to that. Innovation action is to bring your proof of concept closer to its real life application. Private sector will get 70% of funding. Public research will get 100% of funding in this scheme. Coordination and support actions are actions where you network with your colleagues on key policy issues. Again, 100% funding. EIC Accelerator, basically it's an instrument targeted to scale up SMEs and startups, and there you get 70% of funding, plus also equity investment from the Commission. What are this kind of instrument, how this kind of instruments are related to the maturity? You may have heard about the technology readiness level. It's a scale in which you have, it's a scale from 1 to 9. At 1, it's, oh, I had an amazing idea. 9 is where you are ready to take your innovation to its full-scale deployment. The funding instruments that you've seen before are basically aligned with the TRL scale. So at low TRL, you have the research and innovation actions. At higher TRL, you have the innovation actions. The SME instrument is falling even closer to the market deployment. And who is normally leading this kind of programs? Very low TRL, you have the universities and the RTOs. Mid TRL, you have universities, RTOs, high-tech enterprises. At high TRL, instead, you see the enterprises, the end users doing this, leading this kind of projects. So, what we go back, just a quick reminder of what's the structure of Horizon Europe. I have mentioned the clusters has the top-down area for funding, and just want to give you a very quick explanation of what's the structure of Horizon Europe. It's very similar to what was also the case of Horizon 2020. Basically, you have Horizon Europe on the left, the whole program. You have, for each cluster, you have dedicated work programs. Under each cluster, you have the destination, major chapters aligned with the key strategic impact that the cluster wants to achieve. The destinations are, again, divided into sections, and for each section, you have the separate topic. You will submit at topic level, and what's important is that you don't have to care about, if you are pretty new to these programs, you don't have to really care about the part on the left. You just focus on your topic, and we will help you in focusing on your topic of interest. Another important concept is that for each topic, for each proposal that will be developed for this topic, you will have to work with a coordinator. Who is the coordinator? The coordinator is the main drive behind the preparation of the proposal. Coordinators are recognized experts in their field, and they have sufficient resources and support mechanisms to gather a group of experts and to coordinate the innovation efforts of their research team to achieve the goal of the project. You don't have to start as a coordinator. We advise normally don't start as a coordinator. Start to participate in tasks where you feel confident and gradually take more management responsibility. What is the role of the coordinator? The coordinator will identify, together with the national contact point, together with their support services, a call for proposals. From the call for proposal, what you normally do, you develop the pair diagram, and you can identify your main actors that you can put on the pair diagram. Then you will look for new partners to fill the gap. This is the role of the coordinator. Let's start from the text of a call for proposals in Horizon 2020, in this case. It was a call for proposals on water reuse in industrial processes. The budget was pretty high for each single proposal, up to 12 million euros. The call for proposal also gives you what you really have to do in terms of science, but also in terms of horizontal activities. The coordinator, what's the role? To define, this is the pair diagram. They define the work packages in which you can subdivide your project. You have on the right technical work packages, and on the left you have horizontal support work packages, communication, exploitation, project management. What the coordinator does, they have a network of people that they know very well, and they will ask them to lead some specific areas, and then look for new partners to fill the gaps, to have a wide range of collaborators of different kinds, of different with a different role in the value chain of innovation, and they will take care of performing the project activities. This is where you can basically start as a newcomer. Try to do something that you are confident. If you are expert, for instance, in desalinization, you can play a role in this work package. So, some tips just before giving the floor to my colleague Rebecca. Ask for advice from us, from your MCPs. If your institution has support services, talk to them. If you have colleagues who have already been participating, talk to them, because they will be able to advise. And if you prefer, there are also specialized consultancies whose job is to help you. Start early and plan in advance. And don't be afraid to start gradually, because there's always time to be the coordinator. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention. I will be ready for the questions at the end. And Rebecca, the floor is yours. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Stefano. So hi everybody, I'm Rebecca, and I will help you answering the question that you might have now, which is what to do, what are the first steps. So in the first part of the event, you had several presentations about the program. Stefano just told you about the key concepts around Horizon Europe. And so now let's go around the first steps. So the first steps can be divided into four key basic steps, which are developing the idea and preparing the value proposition, getting advice and support, forming or joining a consortium, getting inspired by past and ongoing projects. You might now think that these steps are quite evident, but they are equally important. They go hand in hand. So it's not you do that first, but they go hand in hand. So I'll first develop on developing the idea and preparing a value proposition. You don't need to already have identified your the call text against which you would like to propose your project to start working on your idea. But if you have, read the text carefully, because each word counts. So the starting point is your innovation agenda. The project idea you will develop should fit your innovation agenda. It must solve a problem and have European value. So as Stefano just explained, you go for European project for its cooperation advantages. So it also must be an internal reflection. So when you develop the idea around the innovation agenda, you have to identify your capacities in terms of human resources, but also infrastructures, what you want to do with what you have, where you want to go and what you need to go there, and also what you want to bring on the table of cooperation. So this work will lead you toward the writing of a value proposition. So the value proposition is a rather short document that summarizes all the information someone outside your company needs to know to understand where you are at, what you can bring on the table, and why you want to join a consortium. So in that document, you should briefly introduce the company with the contact details, the strength, if you have participated in national or European projects, put them there. So with your role and the outcomes of the projects. The value proposition should be adapted to the call text you are interested in. So you should mention which one it is, but also what you can bring for this specific project, for this specific call text. Really remember that you are not alone to undertake this work. So as National Contact Point, that we abbreviate NCP, we can help you identify and analyze the best matching open call. We will work with you to identify future opportunities as well. We have an overview over the 2 next years of the work programs, but we also have the history of the past programs and past activities funded. So we can help you there, do some identification. We can also develop with you a tailored analysis of the European Research, Development and Innovation agenda to help you and guide you through the trends and the European Union expectations. So continuing on getting advice, the go-to team for getting advice in Luxembourg is the team of National Contact Point working at Lux Innovation. As Benjamin said in the previous part, we are a team of 7 people and we have each our own specialty. So it's our job to help companies, researchers, NGOs, any interested parties to participate in Horizon Europe, and our services are free of charge. So what we can do for you, we monitor the European RDI policies, as said, we write memos, we follow the news and write articles on trends. We also know the work program very well, so we can identify and suggest the most relevant funding for you, for your idea and your company. We regularly organize trainings and workshops such as this event that will be completed in the first quarter of 2021 by a series of thematic webinars covering Horizon Europe. These will be advertised through our newsletter and Lux Innovation website, so we encourage you to register or to follow us on the social medias where you want. We provide also help on forming or joining a consortium. That will be my next point. And as you could have heard before, we offer to critically review your proposal. This will ensure that the proposal that you are writing, that you will submit, match the expectation of the evaluators at the European Commission. About forming or joining a consortium. Quickly, a consortium, it's your cooperation team with whom you will work for on the project, on writing the project proposal, but also you will work with them on the project implementation. It's a legal requirement. You need to have at least as a minimum rule 3 different entities, partners, or not entities, 3 different partners from 3 different European countries. That's a minimum. In most of the case, it's not the target. You should always aim for more. So how to form the consortium? Always read the call text carefully, identify the type of partners needed there. So first, we advise you to think about your network. It's always best to work with friends. Then also you need to think about the geographic balance, but to keep in mind that the excellence and the impact, they are the drivers for success. Also, as said, you need to cover the whole value chain with the different partners. No part of the value chain should be left out. No part of the call text should be left out as well. So you are not alone. Again, as NCP, we can analyze the top performers from the European databases that we have access to for you. We can scan and prioritize within the European partnerships which entity that is part of this partnership or who has participated in a past project could be a good candidate to work with you. We also have the facilities to engage with coordinators and experts in Europe. So do not hesitate to contact us. Last steps I would like to mention is to get inspired by past and ongoing projects. With these steps, you will understand what is the state of the art, what is in the pipeline as well. You could see where your ID could fit regarding what has been done or what is ongoing. And most importantly, it will give you ideas and you will experience what is a European project, what it looks like. So there are different ways to look for past and ongoing projects. Of course, the easiest one is to look on the search engine. If you are researchers, one good way is to look for the acknowledgement of funding during presentations or conferences when they will take place again on site. But there are also European repositories where all the projects that have been funded or are put together. So you have the CODIS repository. The European Union has a research magazine with thematics articles. There is also the European dashboard where you can find a bit more data and past projects. So if regarding all this, you do not find what you want, you can contact us. Always, we have access to databases that are not public, and we can also work on identify the best matching project for you and identify the key players in the areas. So briefly resuming, if you are considering going for European projects, the very, very first steps you should do are to really develop your ID with the writing of a value proposition. Do not stay alone, contact us, get advice and support. Work on joining or forming consortium, but look within your network first, and also get inspired by past and ongoing projects. With that said, I'll leave the floor to Charles, who will give you some more tips and tricks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So we've just seen the first steps that you should take if you're interested in becoming more active in the European funding program. So now we can speak about the next steps. One message I want to pass is that there are different kinds of participants in this program. Classically, of course, we always think about maybe the big industry and the academia. But the European Commission is really stressing the fact that we need participants all along the value chain, the innovation chain, because the programs in the end are not about just writing a paper and publishing a result, or a patent for that matter, but it's really bringing solutions to the market, to the end user. And in the end, the only way to really do this is to actively involve all the end users and everybody, all the necessary stakeholders that are along the value chain. And there's two elements about this. So you yourself will obviously know in which category you fall, but there is different things you can get out of these programs, and there's different things that you can give to these programs. And accordingly, we recommend various funding opportunities that are more or less suited to the situation you're in. I will not read all these opportunities to you, but you can quickly realize when thinking about it, if you're a company or a public administration or a researcher, you might have different expectations of output that you get from the project to yourself. And I'm not speaking financially, because as we discussed before, the financial return of the project is not what creates the most value. It's really all the other things around that. And accordingly, of course, you also bring different things to the table. And this is very important to realize yourself, because this is the way into a successful and competitive consortium, if you know what you have and what you can bring. And it can be pilots, it can be manufacturing lines, it can be your latest research results, but it can also be just access to data that nobody else has access to. You'll see that across the board, one of the things that I often recommend, and I'm also personally in charge of, are the Marie Curie. So they're abbreviated here, MSCA, PF. These are the postdoctoral fellowships. Why am I mentioning this so broadly? This is one of these funding schemes that's relatively easy, because it's mostly written by the postdoctoral fellow that will do the project. So not you yourself. Of course, you can be more or less involved. It's for really any type of organization, be it a small startup, a big industry, academia, obviously, public administrations, etc. But we can discuss this more later. And then there are different funding schemes like the EIC, the Innovation Council that we discussed before, the ERC, Pillar 2 with the more top-down calls, as well as Pillar 3 that is more industry or innovation focused. You'll see that, and you heard it before, so many of the things we say might appear quite repetitive, but the idea is really to focus on these issues because they are essential. So there are various degrees of complexity within the European funding program, and we really recommend that you take steps along this line to build up expertise, to build up the knowledge, and progressively work towards becoming more and more active and getting more control. Of course, that always depends on your organization, the nature of your organization. You might be perfectly fine with just providing access to your data or to your end users or something along these lines, and you might not have bigger expectations, and that's perfectly fine. We can see, again, I don't want to get into each single example here, but you can see we have examples even outside of the Horizon Europe funding scheme, like the cost actions, which are a relatively interesting opportunity to build networks and communicate with each other on a European scale. And it can be a good starting position for building a consortium for an upcoming Horizon Europe call, provided, of course, that this call fits the category of the actors that you had in your cost action. There's cascading grants. This is a bit more complex, but these are basically funding schemes within a European project. So imagine a project being financed on the COVID-19 that then provides funding for further small SMEs, for example, according to their own regulations. So there are examples like this, and we can help you identify them. And they're relatively low low input needed to get into these. The Marie Curie postdoc fellowships I mentioned. And then in the blue box, there's basically mostly the Pillar 2 calls, so the so-called top-down calls that you might be familiar with, addressing a very particular issue in a very particular field with a text that's provided that was shown by Stefano before. And even there, you can have various roles, just providing some access to some data or end users. You can provide your expertise as scientists or as industry, but then you can become more involved. You can become a work package leader, or at the end, then even the coordinator of the project. There's also partnerships that we briefly discussed before. There's partnerships on many of the major scientific areas, and there's various models of how to be involved in these partnerships. So again, how can you make your life easier? I'm repeating a bit the messages from my colleagues, but yes, if you have colleagues and collaborators and business partners that are involved in the European programs, or even if they're not, it's a great starting point to work together with these people, and because you will have a trusted relationship, you know that you can rely on them. Start early, as always. That's a given. Build your expertise progressively. You can orient yourself on the scheme that I showed before. Of course, this will be something very individual and personalized, and we can discuss this, of course. The value propositions are a very interesting approach. We mentioned it before, because they make you think about what you can bring to the table, your unique selling points, which is not necessarily something, especially as scientists and public researchers, that you think about every day, I would say. Getting support, obviously, from us, from your research facilitators, administrations, from colleagues, from consultants. There's one example. We haven't discussed this in much detail, but and it's unfortunately not up to you to decide this. But some of the calls of these top-down calls, they're in so-called two-stage calls, meaning that there is a first phase and a second phase, and in the first phase you only have to submit a smaller proposal to see if you fit your consortium fits the general idea of the topic. And only then, if you're selected in the second round, you have to really spend much more time and energy on it. So it can be a good choice as well to focus your energy, let's say. Continuing on this scheme of demystifying some urban legends that you might have heard, let's say, that the programs are very bureaucratic, and you spend more time on the reporting than you spend on the actual project. I think that's not necessarily true when you really look at the data. First of all, we are there to help you, but there's also other support available. There are templates for your budgets, for your timesheets, for organizing consortia, agreements. All these things exist, and if you cannot find them, because yes, the internet is sometimes a wild place, just please get in contact and ask us, and we can help you find them. Very often we have these templates ready. Then yes, your role in the project, of course, will also mean if you make the difference, if you're more or less involved in the reporting and in the timesheets, if you're a coordinator of the project, obviously you spend more time on such issues than if you just provide a small abstract, and that's all that you ever had to do besides the actual work or the data you provide. There's in the end, if you look at it, the reporting is the administrative burden is very similar than what you find in other types of projects from the Ministry of Economy or from the FNR, the National Science Fund, or other programs for that matter. Plus, there is more and more this concept of lump sum funding coming up from the Commission, and we'll see how this develops in Horizon Europe. And the difference there is that during the project, you don't have to spend any time on reporting the costs for the different items. You basically spend all this time doing a very precise budget before, and then you are evaluated on that. And it's financially checked if it makes sense. And then during the project, you can basically focus more on the project. Then, even though this should be obvious, but the management part of the project is also eligible as a cost item. So the time and resources you spend on managing a project can be financed through this project. So let's imagine you're not quite there yet, and you want to be ready in let's say 2 years or so, for whatever reasons that you might have. What are the steps that you should take right now? And that's something we want to stress, even if you're only now getting interested in the program. Please get started in time. So, for example, we we start working together with the Commission now on the calls for the next 2 years, the programs for the next 2 years. So they are known to us, more or less. There will be changes and negotiations, but it's more or less known what will come in the future. And so you need to take into account, let's imagine you want to be ready in 2 years to start your project. You need to take into account the evaluation period, so that's around 8 months, and then there's a negotiation of the contract with the European Commission, another 3 months. So more or less 8 months of time between the submission of the project and the start of the project. There's the proposal writing part, which obviously is very important. I'm indicating here approximately 6 to 8 months. Of course, this is not 8 months of full-time work for one person to only write your project, but you need to take into account in a large consortium, there's back and forth between partners, there's some level of coordination. So it's important that you need to take this into account, and that you devote enough time and resources to the writing, because if you only start 2 weeks before the deadline, the chances are very slim that you really can make it with a high quality proposal that's competitive. Partner search takes time, building a consortium. First you start with a core consortium and then you extend. This all takes time. Consolidating your idea, again, takes time. And then even before you're ready to have your idea and commit to a call, there's an element of preparation. That if you feel that you're not ready, that you don't have the infrastructure, the resources ready, this part needs to be ready by then as well. And it can come down to simply just defining your priorities, what you want to do, what you can bring to the table. It can be implementing certain structures, for example, or services internally that are not there yet that you need to put in place. And all of these elements, these are all elements that you can discuss with us. We are used to help people build these strategies and really become more effective in this and build up knowledge in these programs. So please really feel free to come to us and speak about this. Another thing that we often hear from potential participants is that, well, Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe, you name it, it's sort of a closed club. It's always the same people that get the funding, and it's difficult to integrate. There's some truth to it, but we need to look at it more carefully, to be honest. There's, for example, partnerships inside Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020 in the past. And these are, some of them at least, they are closed clubs. They are your organization or your country, Luxembourg, either through the Ministry of Research or the Ministry of Economy, need to make a commitment to join, and then you are in a, let's say, somewhat protected space, and there's less competition inside this partnership. When we actually look at the data, the picture is also different. Of course, you will find in the statistics structures like the CNRS in France, and equivalents in all around Europe, that are always on the top because they are so huge. There's so many researchers inside that when you look at the researcher level, the picture becomes much more modest. But then still, of course, there are certain aspects, experts on matters that are very relevant in the European programs. And these people, they are sort of, yes, experts that are always considered to be part of these projects and asked to be part of these projects. But that also means that at some point you can become such an expert. It's not a matter of one day, it's not a matter of 1 year, but it's a slow process, but it's worth investing into these programs to become more visible. And then it's sort of a virtuous cycle. The projects keep sort of happening by themselves. Okay, so a bit to consolidate what we've been saying, the main takeaway messages, we speak about 3 here. One is you're not alone. You should speak to us, and if you feel that there is an added value, and we can discuss this very personalized, even if we do this remotely nowadays for a large part. We are really there for you to help you understand and give you the best chance to participate in these European programs. Again, this is obvious, but you should focus on programs that are well aligned with your research aims, your internal strategies, your knowledge, your capacities. Because if you venture too far outside, there's a large chance that you don't have a much high or very high perceived added value to a consortium, and they might not be interested. And then the third point is, yes, take these small stepping stones, build up your knowledge progressively, so that you can become more and more efficient and knowledgeable about the programs. Then you can visit our website. You can register there to our newsletters. We have trainings every now and then that we offer. And we can stay in touch this way, and we really love to exchange actively in a personalized manner with you to understand your research needs. Beginning of 2020, we mentioned it earlier, there will be a series of webinars on various thematics. Some of them we already have a pretty good idea. Some of them are still maybe a bit more flexible. So we'll try to post this in the polls, and you can vote on your favorite topics so that we know what's really important for you. You can also propose new things in the chat section so that we get a better feeling for what the real needs are, what you perceive as your real needs. So then we'll come to the so this is again the webinar series. These are a few examples which I should have shown you. So in the next part, we'll come to some FAQ, some questions that came up that we can answer publicly, but also please don't be afraid to write to us afterwards, or arrange a meeting to discuss this in a more personalized manner. So thank you very much, and we'll move to the questions and answers.
So there are already some questions that we have answered. I invite you to read about them. Briefly on where can you find brokerage event. So we compile the brokerage event on our website. We promote them through our newsletter. But if you want first-hand knowledge, then the best way is to register to follow the European Commission on the social medias, notably Twitter. There you find lots of information. So questions about where we can find current and past projects. So as I said earlier, Cordis is a good start. You find the extracts and the results about the project, the consortium, and most of the time you find the link towards the project website where you can have all the information they have publicly available there. Charles here is in charge of health tech biotech. And there's a question on IP results, ownerships, and patent that I will leave Stefano to answer.
Yes, thanks, Renata, for your question. Of course, we will go deep into the IP and legal and financial issues during one of our webinars, so I invite you to also follow us there. The very quick explanation for today that I can give you now here today is basically when you participate in a proposal, you are evaluated successfully during basically the 3 months that you have after the Commission gives you the results, and that they are preparing the grant agreement, so the agreement between the consortium and the Commission on the project to be done. Basically, the consortium will have the responsibility of preparing a consortium agreement. The consortium agreement sets up the management practices, all the project management structure in a formal agreement between the partners. In addition, you have the IP section of the consortium agreement, in which you have first, every partner must detail what's the background knowledge that they've put forward to the consortium for the delivery of the project. So you explicitly say what is the background document, background knowledge, background IP that you make available to the consortium. You also say what you also define what will happen with the foreground, with what you're going to generate. The Commission is not part of it; it's the consortium which decides what's happening with that IP. So you have the freedom of dealing with it in a way that is, of course, in your case, you are representing a private institution, so who will be responsible for the exploitation, particularly in a private company, and for instance, in a private company, what will be the remuneration, what will be the forms of remuneration for other actors. The basic approach is normally to have a shared IP, but still you can decide to go proceed in other ways. Basically, yes, that's it. This is, of course, we are happy to discuss it separately, of course, for more detailed discussions.
Maybe one thing that I can add to the Rebecca already mentioned that I am the health MCP, the national contact point for the health-related topics. Just to clarify, we have, since we are also in Lux Innovation covering the aids from the Ministry of Economy, so there's also a person responsible for the more health-related matters of the health tech cluster. That's my colleague Jean-Philippe Ari, and we work together very closely, especially with companies. Thanks.
So there's a question in the chat, about the synergies between national funding opportunities and European program. So Stefano, you were about to reply?
What I would say is that yes, there are, in particular, if you remember Benjamin's presentation about the partnerships, there are a specific category of partnership which is called co-funded partnership. They are public-to-public partnerships, public-to-public partnerships. In this partnership, basically there's a commitment of different national funding agencies. Normally, Luxembourg, you have the FNR and the Ministry of the Economy for the public and the private side. Basically, they network together with other funding agencies in other countries for launching joint funding calls that participants with or without, depends, top up from the European Commission. And these partnerships, basically, yes, they will launch this joint calls, and institutions from the member states participating to the co-funded partnership will be able to receive this access to this funding. This is also happening, for instance, Mario Gross mentioned Excel, KDT, and the Euro HPC. Also there's a synergy between national funding programs and European Commission funding, where there's, in that case, there's matching funds from for the projects submitted by, in this case, Luxembourg players.
Thank you, Stefano. I do not see any other questions. So if there are no new questions, then I guess we can conclude this session. We would like to thank you all for joining us today and listening carefully to us. If you have any questions that comes up later, do not hesitate to contact us or to call us. We are available for helping you navigate the Horizon Europe program. Sorry. With that, I wish you all a nice afternoon and hope to see you later on. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.